Hey guys, how's it going? Craig from Bass Lessons Melbourne here. Today I'm joined by Lavondo Thomas.
That's it.
Thomas.
It's pretty good, man.
Who's in Melbourne with Ana Popovic.
Sir.
First time out in Melbourne?
First time in Melbourne, man. First time in Australia. It's a beautiful country.
Enjoying it?
Yeah, oh, dude.
Yeah.
Not getting much, rest, but
Well, that's rock and roll. Anyway, man, it's really good to connect with you.
Yeah. Nice
good to hang out. So maybe you could start off by telling us a little bit about what you do, how you got there, why
sir.
the bass.
Why I do bass?
Yeah.
And how I got here. Well, started, long time ago. No, I mean, I was really interested in Duran, believe it or not. Like when I was a teenager.
Yeah, right.
I got into, spent a lot of time just watching MTV back in the day. And, I saw this band Duran, and I was like, oh, yeah, those guys seem cool,
Yeah, really.
And particularly for me, growing up, in the hood, it wasn't like the natural choice.
No, I mean,
you know what I mean? Right. So, and I still listen to all this music that, my peers and parents and everything like that was listening to as well, too. But,
So this is the
mid-'80s, right? Yeah. So early 80s, so the advent of MTV, cable, blah, blah, you're stuck in front of the TV and then this whole another world opens up. Anyway, long story short, I mentioned Duran specifically because, John Taylor is a beast, and out of all the members of that band, I was like, that's what I want to do right there,
Yeah.
The bass line and reel is ridiculous, right?
Yeah, cool.
So that's what really gave me like the bug to be a musician and start to play. No one in my family plays or anything.
Right. So then, did you learn in school, or you get a bass at home kind of thing?
Yeah. Bugged the parents for I don't know how long, and they finally gave me like a bass guitar, right? So, and I learned by tablature. I'm not sure if they call that tablature all around the world, but you know what tablature is, right? Yeah. Because I learned early on too that I really wanted to learn how to read music.
Sure.
So when I got that bug of wanting to play the guitar, I was in junior high school, and I was talking to some of the music teachers, and they were just like, "Hey, man, you can join a jazz band, you can come blah blah, but do you read music at all?" And I was like, So thankfully, I learned how to play the bass and learn how to read music at the same time. So like with tablature, I would take, 5th fret, 1st string, so that's an A, right? And correspond where those notes were at on the staff, blah, blah. Well, anyway, long story short, that's how I learned how to read music.
Cool.
Is by doing tablature and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, nice. And so did you join the jazz band?
I did join a jazz band.
Cool.
Yeah, spent a couple of years doing a jazz band. Then that kind of opened up the whole another world, right?
As soon as you start checking out jazz, you start checking out jazz bass players.
And dude, check it out. So like, we're at a club right now, and I got Sade playing in the background, and we were talking a little bit earlier how like, Smooth Operator was like the first solo that I've learned.
Yep.
So, and to me, my young years back in that day, that sounded like jazz, right?
Yeah.
So, I learned the solo, the Smooth Operator, and I was like, oh man, I can play jazz. Jazz is cool, And I remember specifically, it was close to 87, somewhere around the net, because Jaco had passed in 87.
Right.
So I kept seeing like all these news clippings. Oh, Jaco died. He's a jazz bass player. This, and I had just learned. And I was, jazz, man, I can play jazz. Let me check some of this Jaco out. Get on some of that. First song I heard, Donna Lee. And I was like, let's rethink this thing, So 100%, yeah. So yeah, no worries there.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't realize you guys were doing this.
Did we mention that we're doing this live, folks? That's all right. No worries.
I think it's over there, behind that slit.
Sorry, carry
on. That's okay.
Live.
Yeah, no worries.
So Jaco?
Yeah, Jaco. So I jumped into the Jaco head first and realized right away, immediately, wait, there's levels to this thing. So that was way over my head, right?
Sure.
So, and it is interesting enough there too, because of you. I met Jimmy Haslip today, which was great. And around that same time, my stepfather had a the Yellow Jackets album Four Corners, actually. And so, you know, there was Jaco, then there was the Yellow Jackets that I was listening to as well, you know. And the Yellow Jackets, you know, I shouldn't say that music was easier, but that was a little bit more accessible as far as me playing than Jaco was, you know. So, I dug into Jaco a little bit more, but with the Yellow Jackets, I mean, I was head first in, I was like, oh, you know.
That was your
Here
thing.
we go, right. And
so did you manage to kind of transcribe any of that material?
All of it, all of it, yeah. And Jimmy is probably like my all-time favorite bass player, like ever, you know.
Yeah, he's great. I was just hanging with him today, and he's got so many stories. He's done so much.
Dude.
Playing with Shaka Khan and Al Jarreau.
Shaka Khan, Al Jarreau, you know, Anita Baker.
Yeah.
You know, and then like a lot of stuff that I found out like after the fact there too, because you know, growing up, you know, in the hood, you know, we listened to a lot of R&B, of course, right? So like when that Anita Baker Rapture album came out, you know, it was just ridiculously groovy, you know. It wasn't until years later that I found out some of those tracks was like Jimmy playing that, you know, and I was like,
he's him.
you know, it made sense, right?
Yeah,
you know,
it made sense if you connect that.
Absolutely.
So kind of like early 80s to early 90s, are you gigging? Are you around town?
Yeah, very little.
This is New York or?
This is, I'm actually from Ohio.
Ohio, okay.
Yeah, so it's like a little state in the Midwest of America, right? Yeah. From Akron, Ohio. So, you know, in Akron.
Shout out Akron, Ohio.
Yeah, shout out Akron, Ohio. You know, Black Keys.
Yep.
Chrissy Hine, Devo, you know, so it has like a pretty rich musical history, you know.
Yeah.
That being said, the music scene in Akron back then wasn't, you know.
Wasn't as happening.
Wasn't that happening. So, you know, to answer your question, no, I was just one of those kids in the bedroom just practicing.
Okay.
You know, wasn't gigging at all back then those days, you know. And then soon after, you know, started college and gigs a little bit through college, you know.
And were you studying music in college?
Studying jazz in college, right?
Cool.
Which, you know, if I can go back and do it again, you know, it was cool. But being in the professional world now, 20-something odd years outside of college, you know, if I can go back, you know, I would probably study more composition, you know.
Yeah,
so like
get some writing credits.
Yeah, absolutely. So for anybody out there now who's like on the fence or maybe going to school, I mean, I would definitely like learn to read and go to school and things of that nature, you know.
Yeah.
And jazz is cool to study, but I would say that, you know, I mean, you can learn jazz and everyone's going to learn jazz. And you can also learn composition too, but like, you know, those compositional techniques really help out a lot, you know, as finding out, you know, like in different situations.
I mean, because I don't know about you, but most of the work and most of the playing I do is in jazz based.
Right.
But in order to really be a jazz player, you got to spend a lot more time practicing that stuff, you know. And unless you're kind of at the top of the tree, you're maybe not going to get that much work.
That's right.
So by all means, delve into it and understand the harmony, you know, chord structures, 2/5s. But unless you're really passionate, unless it connects with your soul, you know, don't stress too much about it. That's what I think anyway.
That's right.
You know, like
it's going to draw you in. Like whatever music that you're listening to is going to draw you in, and so that's half the battle. But you're right. There's a whole another side of it that it's like you said. You know, learning the chord structures, your 2/5s. You know, and it may sound like, you know, boring and tedious work, and some of it could be. You know, but that said, it's essential. You know, and there's so much of it that's in my playing now that, like, if I didn't sit down with it back then, you know, I'd kind of be struggling a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah. And so then, when did you make the move out east, or did it a while
so
later?
like after Ohio, I worked on cruise ships for about 10 years. You know, I think we have that in common. So off and on for 10 years, right?
Was it Royal Caribbean or?
I did Norwegian.
Norwegian?
Norwegian for the whole time, you know.
The whole time?
The whole time Norwegian.
Loyal.
Yeah, so I brought out a couple of new ships and, you know, and you know that cruise ship life, you know, I mean, you can
suck you in.
It can suck you in, man. There's been people out there who's been doing it for years and years and years.
10
you know.
years is...
Yeah, I've done it for like off and on. So I'll do it for like, you know, a couple contracts and then maybe take like a year off or a year and a half off or something like that, and then go out for like another couple of contracts. And for us, as an American working on cruise ships, you know, we had like a little bit more leeway as far as the contracts were concerned, right? So we can go out for like maybe 4 months or like 6 months if you wanted to, but you know.
Were you doing the cover band?
No, I was in the show band, like the main band.
Yeah, cool.
Right?
So you're reading charts?
Reading charts all the time.
That helps get
playing
your
for all the
chops
shows. Yeah, that's exactly, you know.
Yeah.
And going back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier, you know, with like learning how to, you know, your fundamentals, right? Learning how to read music and learning, you know, getting your ear training together.
Just opens up doors.
Tons of doors, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cruise ships, yeah.
It wasn't a bad gig either, too, man. Like, you know, I talked to a lot of friends who used to work on cruise ships, and, you know, like some of them are real dark on it.
Some people can get really dark on it.
Because, I mean, you know, you're out there on this vessel in the middle of the ocean for months at a time, right? So that does something to you psychologically. That said, you know, I decided to use the time more creatively, if that makes any sense. You know,
get your playing together a bit more.
Yeah, 100%, man.
And you meet people from all around the world, and you're playing every night.
Yes, sir.
So you're keeping your chops up.
Yes, sir.
You know, there's hardly any gigs on land where you can gig 6 nights a week anymore.
That's right.
Jimmy today was telling me one of his first gigs was 5 sets a night, 7 nights a week in a club for, I think they had like a 4-week engagement.
Right.
And I'm just like, that blows my mind.
That's crazy.
5 sets a night, 7 nights a week.
Was that down like when he used to live in New Orleans? Did he?
I think it was before that.
Right.
In Long Island.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's right, because he's from that area originally, right?
But a lot of people ask me about the cruise ships and stuff like that. What's it like? Blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And I'm like, you can try it, you know, do a contract. If it doesn't work out, you always come home and you've done it. And if it works out, then great.
Right.
It's not for everyone, but you got to go in with the mindset that the music still has to come first.
Right.
Because a lot of guys can go out there and treat it as a party.
Oh my goodness.
You know? And that's a spiral.
Dude, you know.
But if you respect the music and you respect the musicians.
What you just said, 100% I co-sign with. And it's, you know, as you were saying that, I was just like, man, it sounds like me.
Yeah.
It sounds like, you know, I'm like looking at myself, you know, besides the dreads, but I'm looking exactly at a carbon copy of it. Yeah, people get us fixed all the time. It's the hair. They get us mixed up all the time, right? But I tell people that all the time, dude. You know, people, especially back in New York, you know, worrying about like working on cruise ships, you know, what can I do to get in, blah, blah, what can I expect, you know, and I tell people all the time, man, like, you know, it's not for everybody, right?
Yeah.
But when you do go out there, maybe do a contract, see how you like it, maybe do 2 contracts, you know, you get to see the world a little bit, right? But when you're out there, you know, you got to treat it like it's like a proper gig, you know, you can't go out there, because people get out there and they start to party, they go to the crew bar every night to drink, you know, I mean, I've had those experiences with the other musicians in the band where they're just like, you know, and it's a bad scene, you know. But if you go out there and really put your mind to it,
and if you've got a good band, you know, if you're good guys around you, I was lucky. I've always had good bands.
Well, you know, I've had some good bands, I've had some horrible bands. You know, and sometimes you can have a good band, but all it takes is like one person who's on the opposite extreme of that to make it a horrible band, right?
Yeah.
Particularly if it's a drummer. You know, if it's a drummer, man, you know, forget about it, right?
So, all right. So then. That took you up to what, late 90s or?
Yeah, like late
2000s?
90s, early 2000s, somewhere around there, mid 2000s, you know. And the whole time that I was working on cruise ships, I mean, like the end goal was New York City, all right?
Right, so you're saving, you're putting the money away.
Absolutely not. You would think that I was saving, but you know, I'm horrible at that, man.
Everybody has that goal.
Right.
I'm going to go out to a contract, I'm going to save some money, I'm going to buy a car.
Yeah. And there are cats that do that, you know, and they, you know, kudos to them, you know. Man, I'm just not that disciplined, right? So it's fortunately.
You bought some bases.
right. But yeah, you know, I tried to save. Let's just say I tried to save, and then, you know, just end up moving back to Ohio after the ships were done, and I was like, listen, I gotta like really laser focus on getting to New York, you know.
Yeah.
So I was in Ohio for about like another year or so before I just made that plunge, and went to New York.
Yeah, and I mean, New York is obviously one of those cities that's a musician's mecca, and
yes, sir.
At some point, everybody's dreamed of, maybe I should go to New York.
Yeah.
And I've been there a couple of times, and the first couple of times I went, it was kind of like being in a movie.
Yeah, it's overwhelming, right?
It's overwhelming.
And
I know myself from having moved to Melbourne and Vancouver.
Yeah.
Trying to book in a scene is, it's all about network.
That's right.
And then if you can play, that's when it happens. But it's I think it's hard to go in and go, I can play.
Right.
Nobody's going to listen to you unless unless you've introduced yourself. That kind of thing. So how? My question is what was your route into working and living in New York?
So like yes and, you know, all of that stuff, right? You know, you're right. You have to go out there. You have to network. You know, you have to go to jam sessions and play. You know, And I mean, like the challenge is too, let's put a flag right there and come back to
Sure.
like, how I got into New York. I would just say too, if anyone's thinking about going to New York, one of the challenges is you have to kind of, unfortunately, kind of focus on what music that you want to play, and then go into that scene, because New York is kind of broken up with like these different scenes and these different, right? And I say unfortunately because, you got the straight ahead guys who play nothing but straight ahead, right?
Yeah.
And although I do play upright and I do play straight ahead, if you just want to really dive into that scene, you have to go for it in that
Full
scene.
on, yeah.
You got the fusion guys who are just into the fusion scene. You got the rock guys.
Okay.
So everything is compartmentalized.
Yeah.
Which is the way we think anyway. But there's very few guys who kind of transcend that and do like a little bit of everything, right?
Yeah. Even the name guys.
Even the name guys
get pigeonholed for doing the Wayne Krantz gig or whatever.
That's right. Like Tim did that Rain Krantz. So and Tim will tell you too. You interviewed Tim, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure he'll have some stories about like he does his pedal thing and play with Wayne, and all of a sudden he's pigeonholed into like that guy in the city. So he can't. Well, I'm not saying he can't get called for other gigs like a straight ahead gig, but they don't see him as that, right?
Yeah.
So getting back to like my transition into the city, having already heard about that kind of like thing in New York, I tried to go out and network and play a little bit, but not pigeonhole myself so much into a certain scene that you're stuck into that thing,
Yeah. So. What is your thing?
That's the thing, I'm not even sure if I know it myself, because right now,
as bass players, we do so many gigs with different people and different styles. You got to be a chameleon.
100% a chameleon. I try to be like more of a studio guy where they can play like everything, right?
Yeah.
Like one of my heroes is Will Lee. This guy that I run into in the city all the time. But Will plays with everybody. Oz Noy, and then he'll do some singer-songwriter stuff.
Oh, he's a legend.
Super legend, right? And can fall in and out of all these different scenes.
And he can sing.
Croon. He's a crooner, right? So, and such a super sweet dude too. Anyway, I digress. But so that's the kind of the path that I tried to follow. Going that route. Just try to be like a master of.
Okay.
Yeah.
If there was a dream gig, what would be your dream gig?
A dream gig in the city. What would be my dream gig? I really liked what Will did, like on
TV.
Yeah, because I have a 4-year-old kid at home now.
Yeah, sure.
So being on the road is a little tough.
Yeah.
And so you would like to have a steady gig in the city every night. That and about a year and a half ago, I did an off-Broadway gig, which was cool, So that was like, every night, 2 matinees on Saturday, right?
Again, reading.
Yeah, reading, absolutely, 100%, And that show lasted for about a year and a half.
Oh, cool.
So I spent a year and a half, like, in the city, did some gigs here and there where I had to sub out, but I kind of like that kind of situation, watching the kid grow up,
It's almost like the cruise ship thing on land.
The cruise ship. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Less Dramamine, But.
Yeah, cool. What kind of gear are you using?
All right, so I got a Sadowski bass that I play.
Yeah.
Got the Will Lee model. I mean, that's how
Lovely.
big of an influence that guy is on me. I
Great bass.
drink the Kool-Aid and say, okay, And what's funny about that too is like, for years and years and years, I thought about Fedora basses, and I don't think there's anything wrong with Fedora basses, but because like all the cats are playing, Yannick plays one, Anthony Jackson
Felix.
plays one, like my heroes, and I studied with Yannick a little bit in New York, and so I saw firsthand. I mean, that bass just sounds great,
In his hands.
In his hands, 100%, And I take some lessons now with Felix Pastorius. Felix has a
Beautiful,
Fedora, so those Fedoras sounded sweet, and when it was time for me to get a new bass, I was like, Fedora. I'm gonna get a Fedora bass.
What were you playing at the time?
I was playing like an Ibanez. I had this Ibanez. I can't even remember. The
Sound
RGB
gear or
or something like that.
Was that your cruise ship bass?
That was a cruise ship bass. So that bass I used that for like 10 years.
Bit of rust on it.
Yeah, oh, dude, man, it's wearing out.
Yeah.
And so it was time for a new bass, and I went to. I think it was Sam Ash in New York, you know, and I was gonna go straight to Fedora, but like, you know, those basses take a couple years, a year and a half to build, and you have to order, blah blah. So I was just, you know, I know that Sam Ash had some, so I was like, let me go down there and check them out, you know.
Sure.
So I went down there, and Larry Harkey is at Sam Ash now, you know, and he's a good guy too, you know.
He's working now.
He's working, you know. He doesn't have to work at all, you know. But yeah, if you ever find yourself in New York, go down Sam Ash on 34th Street. You'll see Larry Harkey, right?
There you go.
So Larry was there, you know. We chatted for a little while, you know, and I was like, man, you know, I want to play some of these fedoras that you got on the wall, you know, because looking for a new bass, you know. It's like, he said, yeah, I'll let you play some of those. But you know, in talking to you and the kind of stuff that you like to play, you might want to try some of these Sadowskis out there too, you know.
Sure.
And I had heard about Sadowski, of course, because, you know, Will plays one. You know?
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, we'll do that. So I played some of the fedoras, you know, they were cool. You know, then I played, you know, the first Sadowski that he put in my hands, like the Will Lee model, you know. I played that, man, it was like, it sounded amazing, it felt good. Put that one down, picked up a couple more fedoras, and picked that Sadowski back. And I was doing a Pepsi challenge, you know.
Yeah.
And I went through like maybe like 4 or 5 fedoras, you know. Yeah. And the more I played them, I was like, you know what, man, these basses aren't really for me. You know, they're great basses. And like you said, in Yannick's hands or in Anthony Jackson's hands, real light touch, you know, but for what I needed, man, I mean, I bought that Sadowski. I bought it, man.
Yeah.
That it was a Will Lee model, and it just felt good.
Yeah.
I can do everything with it. It's like the only bass that I take on the road with me now. It's the only bass that I take in the studio now.
For sure.
Unless, you know, they call for some upright or some fretless or whatever, you know. But that being said, you know, and plus Roger is just like a great guy too. You know, his shop is out there in Long Island City, you know. So every time I go up there, you know, because I'm nobody, right? You know, in the sense of, you know, I mean, I'm no Will Lee, I'm not those guys, I'm not tall, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, every time I go up there, you know, Roger's desk, you know, he's working on some guitars, you know, he looks and sees who's in the lobby, man, he stops what he's doing. He comes out, he says hello, talks to you for a while, you know. The very first time that I went there, you know, he showed me, the factory and what, you know, all this stuff, you know.
Yeah.
The guy doesn't know me from Adam, right? But I was just just with to see him, you know. So that's the kind of guy he is, and that's why I don't mind, you know, supporting him. And
they're quality instruments, man.
Absolutely.
You know? I had a similar kind of thing when I was on one of the ships. We docked in Brooklyn, and I made an appointment to go to the Federa factory and hang out. And I went round, and I think it was Vinny that was there, and he was super nice. He showed me around, met everybody, and he goes, grab a seat. Brought out a rack of basses, Matt Garrison, Victor Wood, and all this stuff. And he goes, try it. And I had my F bass with me. And he's like, I said, do you mind if I AB? He's like, no, go for it. And I kind of went through them all and AB'd them, and then plugged in the F bass. And it just felt like home. And I was like, that's the sound that I want from a bass. These are all phenomenal instruments. If I was doing XYZ, or if that was the sound that I heard in my head, it wasn't. So
you're leaning a little bit more towards that way, but you're absolutely right. Nothing wrong with those basses. I mean, they're great basses.
And I love listening to guys that play them as well.
That's right. You know, and in fact, I think like the next bass I get may be a fretless. They got this new 5-string fretless that they have out. You know, that sounds really good. There's a video out. I think maybe Tom Kennedy is playing it. Dave Weckel's bass player. Yeah, Tom Kennedy.
Tom Kennedy,
You know, so he's like testing it out, you know, and I've had my eye on it for a little bit. So that
fretless,
might be,
huh?
Yeah, you know, I do like a lot of work on fretless back home, you know.
Nice.
I'm in a band who's signed to Rope-A-Dope Records called The Flowdown.
And with the Snarky guys and all
that's right. Snarky, the Snarky just took that label, boom, and just blew it up, right? You know,
Funky Knuckles.
Oh my goodness, man! You know, we played some shows with Funky Knuckles, man.
Man.
Those cats are funky. You know, that name is no joke, right? So, but like with my band, The Flowdown, that's straight fretless, you know.
Right. Cool.
And I remember seeing an interview with Sting. Like years and years ago, and Sting was playing fretless in the Police in the early days. You know, he said, "Man, you know, I just had to pick it up and sink or swim." He said, "I didn't even bring my other bass on the first U.S. tour. Just brought a fretless. And if it worked, it worked. If it didn't, it didn't."
Same with Jaco when he pulled his frets out halfway through the tour.
Yeah, that's right. You know, here it is. This is what we're playing now. You know, and I really wanted to get inside the fretless playing. So, you know, with that other band, I was like, okay. this band is going to be fretless only. You know, I'm not going to even think about anything else. I'm just going to fretless only and
Nice.
you know, go that way.
You enjoy it?
I love it, man.
Yeah.
I love it. You know,
Nice. Another side of your bass playing personality.
Yes, sir.
kind of thing.
Yeah. You know,
Yeah.
more expressive playing.
Sure.
You know, and it's helped me with my fretted playing as well, there too, because you know, you try, you know, some of the stuff that you can play on fretless really expressively. I'm just like, well, why can't I play that with my fretless, or my fretted as well, too? You know, so at least you know that concept is.
And your technique has to be a bit more in shape, left hand wise on the fretless.
Yes, sir.
So.
It has to be right there on that fret.
Yeah,
You know, right.
and I noticed when you were playing last night, killer set, man, that you have quite a light touch. To me, it seems you know you're not really digging in.
Right.
How did you come by that?
Yeah, I do. I've always had like a lighter touch. You know.
Yeah.
And that's from me trying to change the way that I play. I used to, when I first started playing, I did what like 90% of bass players do. You know, you pick up your bass and your wrist just bends this way, right?
Yeah.
And you play.
Especially if you're doing the John Taylor, Duran
Hey,
Duran, Mark
100%.
King.
Right. To get your bass way up here over your face. You just but I used to have my wrists bent like all the time, you know.
Yeah.
And it was cool, but after a couple of years, it just started to hurt a little bit, you know. So I learned this from Gary Willis, where now I just try to keep my wrists straight when I play, right? So like, even if you wiggle your hand and put your hand right here and wiggle your hand, you can feel how strong your muscles are. If you do it like this, you wiggle, you feel there's an immediate difference.
Right.
Bring it back up like this, you feel it.
So you get a bit more control that way, you feel?
It was a little bit more control, and like all those muscles are, you think about piano players, right? Piano players play boom, 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 you know. And so that's the way your muscles are designed, right?
Sure, yeah.
Anyway, long story short, so Gary just plays with like a very straight wrist, right? Yeah, absolutely, just a straight wrist, and it made a difference in my playing, you know.
Yeah.
But it also made me play like a little bit lighter. I didn't have to dig in as much.
Yeah.
As, you know.
And I think it also changes your stroke, I found, because I've experimented with it.
Yeah.
And when you're doing that, it's more of a pull on the string,
right.
but that's a bit
That's
more
right.
of a pluck. Do you
That's
find?
right. That's right. More of like a little plucky pluck.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Little plucky pluck.
Yeah, if you dig it in a little bit, you know, I mean, digging in is cool too. You know, I mean, there's guys like who play with the straight wrists. I think he does, like Steve Harris, for example.
Right.
That, you know, I mean, those fingers. I mean, you can chop down a tree with those fingers. Right? You know. So you can do either or, but just for me, I used to play like with the light touch. You know, and with the upright as well, or too. You know. I don't play with as heavy as a touch as I probably. It's a funny story. I digress.
It better be a funny story. If we're
right. It wasn't funny at the time, but it's funny to me now. I had a chance to have a lesson with Ray Brown.
Oh wow!
Back in the day, you know, and he's so super kind, super nice, you know, and. Anyway, spare you all the details, but Ray had me hold the bass, and he said, "Okay, like play me like an F, all right?" So I played an F. He's like, "Man, no, it's not an F." I said, "Play an F." So I look, you know, boom, I play an F, right? It's like, "No, man, that's not an F." I said, "Play an F." He's getting a little bit more agitated. So I'm like, "Oh shit, maybe I'm out of tune." So I tune back up again. Boom, play an F. So he's like, "No, man." He stands up. "That's not an F." I said, "Play an F." So I play an F sharp. And maybe, you know, he's hearing something different. He said, "No, that's not." I said, "Play an F." You know, he's getting more and more agitated. So I go back and I'm looking and I play an F. He grabs my hand, throws it down. Boom. "Play an F." "That's not an F." I said, "Play an F." Boom. Play an F. Grabs my hand, throws it. "That's not an F." I said, "Play an F." Boom. I play an F sharp. Grabs my hand. "That's an F sharp." I said, "Play an F." You know, I'm like, I have no idea what's going on right now, right? I'm like, he's up in my face. He's getting a little bit more agitated. I'm like, man, I'm getting ready to get punched. Ray Brown is about to punch me. And he said, "Give me the bass." I gave him the bass, and he said, "Bah." You know, so I grabbed my hand. I grabbed his hand, couldn't move it, right? And I was like, "Oh, gotcha. That's it," you know.
Right.
And the lesson could have ended right there. Right.
Huge, yeah.
Yeah, that's, you know. But going back to how hard I play, you know, so you would think that after that I would dig in more and play more, but you know,
That was a left-hand thing more than a right-hand thing.
Well, back then it was more of like I think it was like a combination of both, right?
Sure.
But particularly, like, I was like real light, But I'm just like a light player, Yeah. And just like a little postscript to that, there's an album by Oscar Peterson. It's called Oscar and the Bassist, I think it is. Like, came out like in '77. I think it was at the Montreux Jazz Festival. I can't quite remember it.
The two bass players with Niels Henning and...
That's right. Niels Henning, Orsted Peterson, and Ray Brown. And they would play sometimes, the same song, or play both at the same time. Or one would solo while one would play the bass line, And you can hear it there. Like, as good as a bass player as Niles is, he had like a lighter touch. I'm not saying I'm Niles, but he has like, and then Ray, comes in and you can hear the difference. As far as like an upright sound, Ray is where it's at, right? But listening to that, I was like, okay, I'm okay, I guess, because Niles had like a little bit lighter of a touch, I don't have the agility, but it's a little bit.
Man, I think we may need to wrap it up.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Music been happening on stage, but Lavondo, awesome to meet you, man.
Thank you, sir.
Check it out. The Flow Down.
Yes, sir.
Ana Popovic. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.